now have, I think, another interesting topic, more about learning and development. I think I'm going to introduce our next speaker. We have David Blake here, co-founder and CEO of Degree, talked about skill-powered learning, the future of learning. So welcome, David. We appreciate your time today. The floor is all yours.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Give me 1 second while I get my presentation pulled up and shared. All right. So, nice to be with everyone today. We are going to be talking about this moment in time where skills are about to really kind of take over work and share more about what that actually means. But first, I'm going to introduce myself to you all 3 times. And this isn't just out of ego. This is to serve a point. But without further ado, hello, everyone. I am David Blake, and I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Economics from Brigham Young University. So that's introduction number 1. All right. Now, my work experience. Hi, everyone. I'm David Blake. This is my resume. So I started my career as a management consultant in Oliver Wyman, which is owned by Marsh & McLennan. I then broke into ed tech and into startups and started my life as an entrepreneur. I was part of the founding team of a startup called Zinch. Its motto is students are more than a test score. And it was in the higher education space, was acquired by Chegg. And then in 2012, I co-founded Degreed. Along the way, I've done some additional things, including co-authoring the book, The Expertise Economy, built a venture studios, which has launched 2 operating companies, one of which is bookclub.com, as well as being a senior advisor to the future of work practice at McKinsey. All right. And now our final introduction. Hello, you all. I am David Blake. Here are some of my skills as the CEO of Degreed, as a operator in the world of SaaS startups, as someone who cares about education. You can see a little bit of, and this is taken from one of our pieces of software, what some of my skills are. All right. So now, why 3 introductions? Well, we are in this first wave of research in terms of what the future is going to look like as organizations start to orient around skills. And so the terminology that has been coined is skill-based organizations, or SBO. And we are starting to see more and more organizations mobilize to this way of work. And really what it means is historically, jobs have been the organizing unit of an organization and therefore ultimately of our economies in the world. And that is shifting. As we move into the future, jobs will no longer be the organizing unit, but rather skills. And we're in this first wave of research. And so McKinsey and World Economic Forum and BCG and Bain and Gartner and Korn Ferry and Burson, many are publishing on the advantages of operating this way. But one of the first to do sort of some longitudinal work on the downstream success was McKinsey. And as you see, this got published in November of 2022. And what they found is they explored 3 different ways of hiring. So the first was hiring based on education and credentials. So that was my first introduction to you all. The second was hiring based on work experience. And the third was hiring based on skills. And what they found is that skills-based hiring was more than 5.5 times more predictive of career success than hiring based on education credentials. And hopefully that actually isn't that big of a surprise. This is, if any of you are familiar with the work of Laszlo Block, who was the head of HR at Google, famously dispelled the fact that education is a corollary to success on the job, as well as many others have actually published against that work. But the second should blow your mind, and that is McKinsey found that skill-based hiring is actually 3 times more predictive of career success than hiring based on work experience. And why that should blow everyone's minds is because if I were to interview at any one of your companies today with 99% certitude, you all would be evaluating me on my work experience. And my guess is that very few of you all are equipped to evaluate me based on my skills. And yet, we now have the first sort of evidence that available to all of our organizations is a methodology of hiring people that is more than 3 times, not 30%, but 3 times more predictive of career success than hiring based on work experience. And so that is just sort of this first taste into what is coming is the better way. The research at this point is overwhelming that skill-based organizations are going to be more efficient, more successful, more innovative, more productive than organizing based on jobs. So let's get into it a little bit more. So what has brought on this moment? What is different about now than any other point in time? Well, there's really 2 things going to point to. And so this is the first. This is taken from Thomas Friedman in his book, Thank You for Being Late. For those of you maybe not familiar with his work, he is the author of The World is Flat, so sort of the sentimental work on globalization. And then a few years later, as he was understanding the world and what the mega trends that would define the world, he published Thank You for Being Late, which was really all about the rate of acceleration. And now this chart, as you look at it, there's 2 lines, and he argues that 2007 is the year where these lines crossed. And that is the rate at which technology can scale has now outpaced the rate at which humanity can learn. And I think this means we are in a fundamentally new sort of context as humanity. This has never, ever been true at any previous point in time. The closest thing we have had historically are the industrial revolutions. But here is the major distinction between what happened during the industrial revolutions and what is happening now. The industrial revolutions were moments in time where the rate of innovation exceeded humanity's ability to adapt and adjust. What is happening now is not about the rate of innovation, which has also been accelerating, but the distinction is it's the rate of scale. So what is true now is that when an innovation comes to market, some of these we wake up the next day and it literally has already gone across the globe and is affecting all of us with immediacy. The rate at which the innovation can scale has now outpaced the rate at which humanity can learn. So what that means is that the skills gap is now getting bigger every day, week, month, and year. And we have no expectation that the skills gap will ever close ever again. Also radically different. The skills gap historically was a corollary to the strength of the economy. Strong economies, the labor market would get tight. Weak economies, the labor market would get soft. Proof that this is true, this new environment, this new context, we have existed in now a sort of recessionary, inflationary market, but with historically low unemployment, historically tight labor market, because there are no longer enough skills in the world. We exist in a context where the skills gap is getting bigger every day, week, month, and year, and we have no expectation that it'll ever close ever again. Last thing I will say on this chart is that the good news to this, the silver lining to all of this, is that the premium on skills is going up and up and up and up and up and up. And there's no expectation that that trend will ever reverse. So what that means is that any individual, any team, any department, any organization, any country that can get good at upskilling, the ROI on that effort is going up and up and up and up. So this represents a huge opportunity for all of us to really begin to evaluate how good are we at upskilling and managing the skills of our organization, because that is increasingly the scarce resource. So this is sort of evidence of the prior chart. This is the amount of time it took for some of our modern sort of technologies to reach 100 million users. And as you look at that accelerating pace, Netflix, Twitter, Facebook, Spotify, Instagram, ChatGPT, that is a nearly vertical line. But even then, it seemed that ChatGPT's record of getting to 100 million users in, I think it was 5 weeks, it only lasted for a month. And then Meta's Threads app broke it when it got to 100 million users in 5 days. So it essentially goes to prove the point that we now exist in a world where major innovations and breakthroughs effectively can go global overnight. You can fall asleep on Tuesday night and wake up Wednesday morning, and your skills gap grew. Without you doing anything, the world changed while you were asleep, and you wake up and your skills gap is bigger today than it was last night when you fell asleep. Now, the second kind of real shift. So, that first chart I showed you, that those trends lines crossed in 2007. So that's not like new news. The pressure of it has just been building and building and building. Well, the breakthrough, the dam breaking, is really this democratization of AI moment. And so, this is what is enabling our new sort of ways of working. And that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about. But what I want to frame is that, look, this isn't without consequence. So there will be winners and losers. Anytime there's a fundamental shift, it helps some and it hurts others. And the goal that we have for all of our organizations, for our own teams, for our own careers, is that we want to be adaptable and we want to be advantaged by these shifts and not found disadvantaged and on the losing side of the equation. And so how do we do that? Well, I want to share a real story with you all. This is the story of Marlin Steel. And they transformed their business by going on this skill transformation. And this was exceptionally low tech. So they had 39 employees and they printed all of their names onto an Excel spreadsheet. And then they identified 135 micro skills. And Marlin Steel is a steel manufacturing plant in Florida. And they are the manufacturers of wire baskets that bakery use to hold rolls and bagels and bread in the display case. So this was a very low intelligence steel manufacturing shop. And they wanted to grow their business. And in doing so, they needed to expand into sort of smarter steel manufacturing. And so the skills matrix became the key to the strategy, kind of the centerpiece of how they were going to do that. And so these 135 micro skills were the skills that were going to be required to manufacture more advanced systems. And so they call their stories bagels to Boeing, because by the time they were done, they were manufacturing parts for Boeing airplanes. So medium and high intelligence steel manufacturing. And the employees, so the bottom left is the actual photo of the skills matrix on their shop floor. And every employee was scored 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 on each of the 135 skills. And every time that an employee would up level, they would go from a 1 to a 2 or a 2 to a 3. They actually would get a micro raise. And so hourly employees, they would get a 5 cents per hour raise if they were to up level. And what this did is, first, it transformed the employees' lives. They went from being minimum wage, sort of low steel manufacturing, to many of them making over 6 figures, paying for homes, paying down debts, paying down, sending kids to college. And the company went from making bread baskets to making these high intelligence steel parts. So it is a story of transformation that was centered around this skills matrix. Now, I share this story because I think this is the template of the future. I think this is how we are going to be operating. This story is also not new. So Washington Post has been covering the journey of Marlin Steel since about like 2000 and 11, 12, 13. They've written them up many times, but this is not new. So why am I telling the story of Marlin Steel and not some transformation that happened last year? Well, because besides companies at the scale of Marlin Steel, this hasn't been feasible. If you think about, as you look at a spreadsheet, 135 skills times 39 employees times 5 levels for each skill, it's roughly 26,000 unique skill combinations. You can handle operating an organization this way when you have 39 employees. But what if you have 390,000 employees? What if you have 39,000 employees? We weren't capable of operating this way. We did not have the technology to operate this way until this AI moment came. And so this is a template. This is what, for those of you who are going to survive, this is what your organizations will look like. If I were to log into your payroll system today, my guess is that 0 of you are paying based on skill. As we log into payroll systems 3 years from now, 5 years from now, my guess is that all of you will be paying with some discretion based on skill, or you won't have made it. Because the advantages, going back to the McKinsey research, the advantages of operating this way are so high for both individual and organization that the best talent will migrate away from the old companies to the new companies that are willing to operate this way, because it advantages their careers, it advantages the company, and therefore it's going to add up to success. All right, one more story. I'm going to have to be quick about this one. What you are seeing is sort of in the background, that is the USS Gabrielle Giffords. And in the bottom right, that is the entire crew of the USS Gabrielle Giffords. Now, here in this sort of subtitle, the Santissima Trinidad was in the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805. And why I reference both of these together is because they are actually the exact same class of warship, separated by 200 years. So 200 years ago, it's just kind of a fun way of seeing this trend. The exact same class of warship required 1,000 men to operate. And this is because everyone was specialized and it required redundancy. So you had one job. Your job was to pull on the rope on the left side of the cannon on the ship. And there was, 20 cannons. And so you had to have 20 people on the left and 20 people on the right. But then what happens when a cannonball blasts through the side of your ship and kills someone? Well, there had to be redundancy. So they were both specialized and redundant, and it required 1,000 men. The USS Gabrielle Giffords can now operate on a crew of about 40 men. So that is a radical decrease in the amount of human labor required to run what is now an exceptionally sophisticated ship and piece of equipment that is mission critical to the Navy of the US, to the security of the US, and to many around the world. Like a very high stakes, very important job with very high sort of cost equipment, and yet it only requires 40 men. Now, how did they get from over 200 years, 1,000 men to 40? Well, no one is specialized. They are all hybrid in their roles, and a lot of it is technology enabled. And that shift, it's just a way of understanding the shift that is coming to kind of all of our jobs. And so here is a much tighter timeline. So that last one was 200 years, granted. A lot has happened in 200 years. But from 2022 to 2027, and this comes out of World Economic Forum's research, we are going to see 10 additional points in machine sort of tasks relative to the amount of work done by human tasks. And so these percentages are shifting quickly. Now, I think this is something we all appreciate, but here's something I think you probably haven't thought about or haven't likely appreciated, which is right now we do have really quite sophisticated organizations to manage our human resources. The HR department, the learning and development department, the people teams, the talent acquisition teams. we have a lot of hands on deck. We have a lot invested in the managing of our people. Well, what is happening with this AI shift is historically we essentially had software and humans, and it was software that was augmenting sort of human productivity. But we're actually going to start seeing the introduction of essentially sort of split that difference. We will continue to see software augmenting our human productivity. But with AI, we are going to see AI agents starting to augment our human productivity. So there will be software, there will be agents, and there will be humans. And part of what we are going to have to shift around is we are going to have to start doing essentially HR on agents. We are going to have to start hiring and firing agents, commissioning and decommissioning. We are going to have to start reporting on their learning. We are going to have to start reporting on their development. We are going to have to start reporting on their productivity. Because to have a report on just the human skills inside your organization will be to answer for 57% of your organization's capabilities. And a report that can only give insights into 60% of the equation is going to be insufficient. We are going to have to start doing HR on AI agents. And that's going to be a meaningful shift in how we think about work, how we organize our teams, and how we conduct ourselves. All right. So AI, this moment is here. It is the unlock. So the pressure, that first shift is the skills gap is getting bigger every day, week, month, and year. That meant the pressure was building. The water was kind of boiling slowly. And then with ChatGPT and the democratization of AI, we now have the unlock that is enabling organizations to actually do something about it. We are able to now run a skills matrix. We are able to identify the skills of everyone inside of our organization in real time using AI. It is the unlock. It is the difference maker, why things are changing now when they didn't previously. And what our organizations are going to start to mobilize to and look like is a lot like Marlin Steel, where you will be keeping track of all of your employees, all of their skills in real time, and mobilizing the work, transforming the organization, meeting strategic objectives based on skills. One way to think about this is, think of the gig economy, how much regulation, innovation, companies, transformation, careers made, all the shifts that went into the gig economy. Well, essentially, the gig economy was taking the unit of work and breaking it down into something smaller. I used to have to be a taxi driver, full-time, fully employed, driving my shift, 6 days a week, 8 hours each shift. Well, if you break down the unit of work is you can pick up one ride or many rides. We're going to have the technology to enable us to do this at the sort of ride basis. The gig economy was unlocked. Well, what is happening now is the same sort of increase in efficiency and sophistication. We're breaking down the unit, but on this side, it's of the human capital. We used to treat humans as essentially we had full-time jobs and like part-time jobs and contractors, but that was the smallest we were able to break down a job. Is essentially a full-time job got broken down into a 50% of a full-time job. But skills-based organizations, it's this radical transformation in that you're going to have way more discretion. If you can break your work down into the skills required and then know the skills of each of your people, you will be able to mobilize people with far greater efficiency and success to the work. Okay, so how do you do this? I am the founder and CEO of a company called Degreed. We created the LXP Learning Experience Platform. It's a category of software that learning and development departments use inside of organizations to be able to sit on top of all of their different training, learning, content libraries. We become the central hub of an organization's learning and development sort of technology stack and strategy. So we are working with some of the world's largest organizations. We serve 30% of the Fortune 100 globally, enterprise-wide. So have some good transparency into where some of the world's most sophisticated organizations are on this journey. And what I will tell you is that it is early innings. There's no one who has cracked this all the way open. Everyone is looking to their left and right and saying, hey, as soon as you know of anyone who's gotten this right, we'd love to know what are the best practices. But everyone's looking to their left and to their right. No one has fully cracked this yet. But this journey is going to be critical for any business that expects to be competitive and successful over the coming years. So where do you start on this journey of becoming a skills-based organization and being able to organize and operate your company this way? Well, so this quote from the New York Times, if you're upskilling your workforce, start by measuring the skills they have now. So that is where you need to start. Now, we're so conditioned on college degrees that we tend to think like there's going to be one signal, there's going to be one number, there's going to be, you might have 30 skills, and those are each going to be reflected with, a very discrete, discerning number. The reality is I don't think that is what it's going to look like. I think the world of skill, as we get this AI unlock, we have always had different mechanisms available to us to answer for and report on skills. We've had assessments, we've had certificates, we've had programmatic certification. We have had self-review, manager review, peer review. We have had adaptive comparative judgment. We have had many tools available to us. The difference is now that AI is giving us even more tools. So I really think that the world of skills is going to look something like the world of your learning. You read articles and watch YouTube videos. You listen to podcasts and you read books. You go to conferences and take courses. Those all do slightly different jobs in your life, just as these different ways of assessing skill do slightly different things. I think it's going to be diverse. So think of the world in terms of a pyramid of data rather than a single credential. Our skills are not going to be as discrete as having one single number. It's going to be a pyramid of data. At the bottom of the pyramid is high volume, low accuracy. Think of this as like the LinkedIn skill endorsements. Those get poo-pooed because, well, any random person can endorse you in any skill, and, how much sort of water should that hold? Well, but if you pull up my LinkedIn profile, my skill endorsements are helpful in understanding what skills I have. It is somewhat representative. Now, it is low accuracy. You shouldn't hire me based on those endorsements, but it does tell you something. That's the bottom of the pyramid. Each of you likely has sort of thousands of skills, depending on how sort of big and small we define this. In your job, you might use dozens, maybe 100. And likely there's only a few critical skills that are really ultimately high stakes and that we're having to make high stakes decisions around. So, to understand your 100 skills, it's okay. It's okay for it to be low accuracy. We just need some signal, some sense. And AI is going to play a big role here. As you come up the pyramid, you're getting to low volume, high accuracy. Well, I can send you through a 9-hour assessment and it will be highly accurate, the veracity of it will be defensible, but I can't do that for all of your skills. But for some situations, for some tasks, we might need to send you through a 9-month training that is assessed, a 18-hour course, a 3-hour assessment. At the top of your pyramid, that's your low volume, high accuracy. And then as you go on this journey, so the first step is you need to get comprehensive data. In another second, it will be to be competitive, the expectation will be that you have a map of all the skills of your organization. So bottom of the pyramid, even if it isn't great quality, get a sense of all of the skills inside your organization. That is your goal. That's your mandate right now to be positioned for the future. Then step 2 is start improving the quality of that data. Start identifying the use cases where you're going to need assessment or you're going to need a more elevated tool. And then step 3 is start to make this actionable inside of your organization. Once you have the data, once you have confidence in your data and the places it matters, you can start organizing this way. You can do skill-based performance management, skill-based talent mobility, skill-based promotions, and whatnot. I am at time. So Degreed is a tool. We are a provider that can help you do this if anyone is interested. But I am going to end with my favorite quote in the world, which is, in times of great change, it is learners who inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped for a world that no longer exists. So my challenge and invitation to all of you is commit yourself, find yourselves amongst the learners and not the learned. Before we dig in and get defensive about how the world is changing around us, this is an exciting future where the upside to it is all of our skills and all of our efforts to develop ourselves. The premium on it is going up and up and up and up. Appreciate the time with you all today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Appreciate your time. Wonderful learning about all that. And I guess it's a very cool idea of, how the concept of lifelong learning intersects with skill-based learning. So I think we're all, of course, learners for life. But definitely will look up the Degrade company. And also, I think more audience members, I'm sure, will kind of reach out to you as well after the session. So thank you for your
Sure.
time today.
Appreciate it. All the best.
All right.